Good afternoon and welcome to the joint meeting of the Glendale City Council and the Glendale Housing Authority for April 12th, 2015, resuming at 3:07. We are going a bit out of order today, so I hope you'll bear with us. Roll call, please.
Roll call for the council. Council members Friedman.
Here.
Garpetian.
Here.
Najarian. Here. Sinanian.
Here.
Mayor Devine.
Here. Next item.
And, well, if you allow me,
report?
Madam Mayor, I would like to take roll for the authority as well to ensure
okay.
all our members are here. Authority members Devine.
Here.
Friedman.
Here.
Garpetian.
Here.
Kelly.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Farazian.
Here.
And Sinanian.
Here.
Next item.
The agenda for the April 12, 2016 joint public meeting of the City Council and the Housing Authority was posted on Thursday, April 7, 2015 on the bulletin board outside City Hall. And the first item before you, Madam Mayor and Chair, is a proclamation declaring April as Fair Housing Month.
Okay, and I think I'd like to call Mr. Moises Carrillo.
And as Mr. Carrillo comes up to the podium, item 2 is a commendation for CDBG property owner Oscar Gonzalez, and 3 is a commendation for Section 8 property owner Keith Lafont.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council and Housing Authority, Chair Garpetian, Moises Carrillo, Community Service and Parks. And today we have Fair Housing Month for April. This year marks the 48th anniversary of the passage of Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, known as the Fair Housing Act. Signed into law on April 11, 1968, the Civil Rights Act expanded on previous acts and prohibited discrimination concerning the sale, rental, and financing of housing based on race, color, religion, and national origin, and was later amended to include sex, disability, and family status. The City of Glendale normally celebrates April as Fair Housing Month with a proclamation by the City Council and Housing Authority, and also a fair housing workshop for Glendale renters to receive information on tenant rights and fair housing. That workshop is scheduled for this Thursday at 5 p.m. at Pacific Community Center. In addition, it's customary to recognize our property owners who provide our tenants for Section 8 program and our homeless shelter plus care programs with recognition for their outstanding service to the community and to our clients. And today I have 2 of our staff members who are presenting 2 proclamations from the City Council and Housing Authority for our 2 property owners. I'll introduce Arsene Sign first.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of the Council, Chair Vartan Garapetian. My name is Arsene Esayan, and I'm the Homeless Programs Coordinator for the City of Glendale Continuum of Care Programs. And it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Gonzalez. Oscar, do you want to come forward? Mr. Gonzalez has partnered with the City of Glendale. We've been in a partnership for over 8 years, and it is because of Mr. Gonzalez that the City of Glendale housing programs have been able to place over 10 chronically homeless individuals in housing, and all of our chronically homeless individuals are still housed in Mr. Gonzalez's units. He is kind, compassionate, caring, honest human being, and we are so fortunate and grateful for this partnership, and we hope to continue for a very long time. So, Mr. Gonzalez, we want to thank you, and we hope to continue our partnership.
And Arsene, if I might, I'd like to present the
Yes,
read the commendation, please,
Do you want to step
to
forward?
Oscar Gonzalez. A fine man, I can tell. And let me say to all of you that, as I understand, this is a rare occasion, so this makes it even more special for all of you. For Oscar Gonzalez, Continuum of Care Homeless Program, in recognition of your generous participation in the Glendale Continuum of Care Homeless Program. Your passion, your aspiration to help the people in need is greatly appreciated and has touched the lives of many individuals in the Glendale community. Congratulations on a job well done. I thank you for representing Glendale and serving as a shining example to all. On behalf of the City of Glendale, I wish you continued success. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Wanted to say thank you very much for this award. It's very special to our family to be able to work not only with the community but also with the City of Glendale The city is very, very special and dear to our family. This is where my father migrated to 45 years ago with nothing, and this is where he met our mother. This is where we grew up. So anything we can do to help lend a hand to the city of Glendale, we're all for it. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's a real American story. I guess I could say muchas gracias.
We have, yes. And we have another speaker to introduce our second
Please.
owner, and that's Daniel Valdez.
Mayor Devine, council members, I'm very excited to introduce Mr. Keith LaFond, a landlord and a vital partner to the Section 8 program. Securing a safe and reliable housing is the first step toward a better future for many of our vulnerable populations. And oftentimes, landlords hold the keys in providing people that start they need. And Mr. LaFond is no exception. In celebrating the Fair Housing Month, two fundamental principles stand out to me that illustrate what Mr. LaFond practices, and that's opportunity and creating access for his tenants. On numerous occasions, Mr. LaFond has assisted Section 8 clients in reducing the rent. Let me say that again, in reducing rent. I've spoken to many of his tenants, and they view him as a caring, compassionate, and honest landlord. To the Section 8 program, he really is a tremendous partner, and he's really is a mitzvah to our department. And also I want to include that his flexibility, his compassion, and his commitment to fairness speak volumes of, in a community with soaring rents and escalating costs. His calm, quiet, reticent approach is really a reflection of his humility and thoughtfulness in creating opportunities for his tenant. So, Mr. LaFond is a redoubtable individual, a true gentleman in the best sense of the word, and we want to thank him for his trust, his commitment, and his participation to the Section 8 program and to the community.
Thank you. Mr. LaFond, you are surely a rare individual and a true gentleman, and we thank you for your assistance in our community. In recognition for your generous participation in the Glendale Section 8 housing program, your passion and aspiration to help the people in need is greatly appreciated and has touched the lives of many individuals in the Glendale community. Congratulations on a job well done. I thank you for representing Glendale and serving as a shining example to all. On behalf of the City of Glendale, I wish you continued success, and thank you so much for your generosity. Please.
Can I say a couple of words from here? I'm going to say it from up there otherwise. I just want to thank Mr. LaFond and Mr. Gonzalez for their humanity, because the practical reality is that right now in Glendale, there's such a problem with affordable housing. And just a few days ago, a resident dropped off a contract that's basically being imposed upon them, whereby two contracts showing that since December of 2015, the rent has been increased by 110%. So in that general sort of mood and atmosphere in the city of Glendale, when we see individuals like you and individuals like Mr. Gonzalez, you're a shining example for the rest of the city and the rest of the landlords. So thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate this award. I've been dealing with Section 8 since around 1980, and I look forward to many more years with Section 8.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I also have the proclamation for Fair Housing Month. It's very long, and Moises actually read most of it, so, but I will read, whereas the City of Glendale administers a fair housing program and funds the Housing Rights Center as its representative to provide education, receive claims, investigate, and remedy illegal housing discrimination against its residents, and whereas The City of Glendale recognizes the importance of its strong commitment and the need for programs and services such as the Housing Rights Center as demonstration of this commitment to fair housing and to enforcing the rights of residents to live free from housing discrimination. I therefore, Paula Devine, Mayor of the City of Glendale, and on behalf of its residents, do hereby proclaim April 2016 as Fair Housing Month. Thank you all. Next item, please.
Next item on the agenda for this joint meeting is Director of Community Services and Parks regarding fiscal year 2016-17 proposed annual action plan for Community Development Block Grant, CDBG Emergency Solutions Grant, ESG, and Home Investment Partnerships Act home programs. 4A is a resolution certifying environmental negative declaration, and B is a motion to approve a fiscal year 2016-17 CDBG, ESG, and Home Annual Action Plan and authorize submission of the annual action plan to the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD.
Okay, I guess Mr. Duran?
Mr. Mayor, Devine, members of the City Council, Chairman Garpetian, members of the Housing Authority. The City of Glendale has been receiving funds from HUD, which currently comprise of Community Development Block Grant Funds, Home Funds, and Emergency Solutions Grant Funds for over 42 years. This year, we did receive a very rare increase in our CDBG entitlement. We went from $1,580,000 to $1,643,000. While the annual plan that we submit to HUD incorporates all three programs, for planning purposes, we will be focusing on the Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG, plan for your review and approval this afternoon. So this increase represents a 4% increase as reflected in Exhibit 1 of your council report. The CDBG Advisory Committee, led by its current chair, Zanku Armenian, again did a very stellar job, and their job was made a little bit easier this year because this 4% increase translated to a $9,000 increase in funds available for social services. In addition to that, the two city departments that typically submit proposals for CDBG funding that did not submit this year, which made their job easier. And on top of that, we had an existing program that had been receiving CDBG funds for a number of years that withdrew their application, so that provided another $10,000 or so that the committee had available to them. So with all these factors, the advisory committee was actually able to increase funding to three very valuable programs and maintain the current funding for the balance of the five recipients of the CDBG funds. And their recommendations are reflected on your Exhibit 2 of the council report, where you could see the amount that was requested by each agency and the amount that was actually recommended by the advisory committee. So on social services, it's all good news, and I think the agencies would agree with that. Under capital improvements, the CDBG Advisory Committee recommended, and the City Council approved, the greatest amount of funds available for community nonprofit organizations as part of the RFP. This is the highest amount that we've ever made available to the community. So again, that was good news. And that amount was $476,000. We received from the nonprofit organizations funding requests totaling $684,000. And that came from 6 agencies, which meant that the committee was able to meet 70% of the combined requests from all of the agencies. Again, a very high percentage. In addition, what I'd like to mention is that to address the city's own expressed highest priorities consistent with HUD for the use of CDBG funds as part of the funding plan, The city also has pre-designated projects, and we currently have two pre-designated projects which are not part of the RFP. One would be for the code enforcement program, the Southern Glendale Code Enforcement Program, and the other pre-designated project would be for our Section 108 loan, which is a loan that we took from HUD 3 or 4 years ago to help us develop the Essentia Access Center and Emergency Shelter. So the $208,000 or $11,000 represents our annual payment towards that loan. One of the things that we would like the City Council to consider is the $370,000 still in the plan designated for code enforcement. If instead we began to fund the code enforcement program with the general fund, so it's 100% general fund funded, which allows us to be more flexible with the code enforcement program, because under CDBG, there are very tight restrictions where the staff must work within certain boundaries, and the area gets smaller every couple of years because the number of low-income families concentrated in Southern Glendale neighborhoods gets smaller. So it's very restrictive, and in addition to that, HUD is becoming even more stricter with the amount of documentation that we have to provide HUD in order to keep that code enforcement program eligible as a CDBG project. So the city may very well be better served if the CDBG funds were substituted with general funds. And that would allow the city to use the $370,000 instead to fund another high city capital improvement priority right now, which we would recommend to be a homeless housing project, potentially working with one of our nonprofits such as Essentia, and possibly leveraging some CDBG funds with some home funds and some funding from Essentia in order to put a project together to add more permanent supportive housing units for chronically homeless in Glendale, which right now is a very high need. As we witnessed a few minutes ago, we have some very compassionate, loyal to Glendale, dedicated property owners, but it's not enough. There is a dire shortage of affordable housing units and property owners willing to work with the city to place the homeless families and individuals that graduate from Essentia that have to move out of our community because we don't have the units available here. So this homeless housing project would go a long way to help us meet that gap in our local needs. So in addition to approving the funding recommendations as submitted by the advisory committee, we'd like the council to consider reprogramming the $370,000 currently allocated for code enforcement to a homeless housing project. And Mayor Devine, Chairman Garbettian, I'm available to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Duran. Comments, questions? Council? Mr. Garpetti?
Yes. I think we talked about this $370,000 last year as well, and I think it's a great idea. But this code enforcement, is it only for substandard dwelling units, or is it like if I replaced my windows 15 years ago, and is that kind of a code enforcement, or is it just a code enforcement related to the housing and quality of life issues?
It's related to any housing code violations.
So it's your standard code enforcement in the geographically bound area of the CDBG census tracts.
Which is?
The portion that this covers would be the very central and south to southeasterly part of the city.
Okay, and the housing program that we want to have is, because with $370,000 we cannot purchase any properties at this time. Is it for rentals that we rent at this time, or are we going to find a dilapidated property, purchase it and rehab it, or what's the plan?
It could be either with the city council's direction. Our recommendation would be to bank the $370,000 for a year or two develop what could be a nice down payment effectively on a piece of property. Then, as Jess indicated, work with one of our nonprofits, possibly leverage some of some home funds that we may be able to get, or other housing program funds, and put together a larger, more comprehensive program that meets HUD's goal of housing first, but also addresses transitional housing as well, would be ideal.
Thank you, Madam.
Any other comments, questions?
Question.
Mr. Najari?
But just to be clear, the proposal is that we swap out the funds, we take the code enforcement out of the CDBG funding, and we backfill that for this low-income housing that you're going to.
Correct.
So those, that would, you said more flexibility, geographically flexible to go throughout the city or where needed to catch those people with the bad windows.
If you were amenable to doing this, then the general fund would pick up all of code enforcement, and rather than having code enforcement officers who are only able to operate inside of that geographically bound area, they can go citywide and be more effective. Right. But it does mean that this council, as part of your budget adoption process, will have to be looking to fill a $370,000 hole in the general fund.
Right.
Mr.
If I may, that,
Sinani?
back from my CDBG days, that was always, a problematic issue because it was unclear why CDBG funds that were so limited were being allocated, such a large chunk of the funds are being allocated to code enforcement South Glendale. And I've heard the excuses and the explanations 100 times, never really satisfied me. So I think we're doing the right thing, moving in the right direction. General fund should service, be used to service code enforcement both South and North Glendale. CDBG funds should be used for CDBG purposes. Yeah, and I know someone's going to say, well, those are CDBG purposes, but they're not. So this initiative that we're thinking about allocating those funds for, does that still mean that the money will remain in South Glendale in a way? Is homelessness more of a South Glendale problem than a North Glendale problem?
I wouldn't characterize it as a north or south, because certainly along Foothill Boulevard, you see issues and instances of homelessness throughout the city. I think the idea is the continuum of care that we are a part of applies to the entire city. Mm-hmm. So the goal would be, and you saw it with some of our Section 8 landlords, to find a property where we can actually improve a neighborhood by taking perhaps a blighted piece of property today, renovate it, and bring in permanent supportive housing and hopefully some transitional housing. And regardless of where that may be, we'd have to make sure legal is in alignment with the HUD requirements, but the goal would be first identify that piece of property, take out that blight, replace it with something that's quality, and solve or address at least a social service problem.
Right. And this is a recommendation by staff.
Yes, sir.
Has CDBG advisory committee opined on this or no? I'd like to hear their thoughts about this because they deal with them. It's their task, and it's that limited pot of money that they're dealing with. Are there better projects or more severe needs that could be filled with that $350,000? I'd like to hear the committee's opinion on that.
We maybe ask Mr.
Otherwise, in a vacuum, it's a great cause. It's a great project to allocate the monies for.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Armenian,
whoever.
could
Yeah,
come up and
Mr. Armenian.
What's your take on this?
We have not reviewed this formally. It has not been put on our agenda. However, I will say, in looking at the overall issue and obviously homeless issues being an important part of some of the allocations that we provide, it is an increasing problem. It was particularly, I think, both the council and staff dealt with this in terms of El Nino preparedness and making some additional accommodations in case El Nino were to arrive, and how we would deal with that in terms of the homeless population. Didn't quite arrive the way we thought it would, so we got lucky. But I think, I think it has merits to be reviewed on its very surface level. I think it's an important issue to discuss, and probably would warrant some sort of budgetary allocation. But I can't speak for the committee at this point because we have not formally reviewed the specific proposal yet at this time.
And truly, in fairness to the committee, we would not have brought it to them until we
move through the council process, because if the council were not willing to fund code enforcement, $370,000 worth of code enforcement through the general fund, it didn't seem fair to dangle that money in front of CDBG Advisory Committee.
Okay, that makes sense, but it still creates the problem of CDBG committee not having had the opportunity to consider where that money's going to go. So how would procedurally, where would that put us?
That's why I think our best recommendation to you would be trying, at least for the first year or so, to bank those dollars to do something more substantial. Now, ultimately, if the council decided that you don't want to do something by way of homeless services or homeless service center, then certainly you would be able to release those funds at a later date and still make its way into the community. But truly, if you're looking at a piece of property, a 8 or 9 or 10 or 12 unit apartment building, it will take a little bit of time to accumulate those funds to make it affordable for the city and for the housing authority.
Okay.
So if council gives direction to bank that money, would that, those funds, that would give the CDBG an opportunity to come to a decision on what they feel is best, or?
Ultimately, they would make a recommendation to you, right? Because at the end of the day, you decide what to do with that. I would submit to you that the community and any community organization is no worse off if you were to bank those funds for this coming year, because heretofore those funds have been used for code enforcement and not been programmed into any of these community organizations. So I think the idea that the community groups that otherwise may apply to these funds are not being somehow unserved because they weren't there in the first place. I think ideally, and Mr. Armenian points out, the issue of homelessness is becoming increasingly systematic and one that is based not just on housing insecurity, but also mental health as well. And so what we see and what we experienced as part of the winter shelter program that ended at the end of March tells us that we can and probably need to be doing more in that arena.
Right.
So are we going to handle this issue sort of separately? Do we want to discuss that separately before we go to the rest of the recommendation, or how?
Well, again, sir, I would tell you that to the extent that the code enforcement piece of it has to be included as part of your budget discussions in the coming months, we would ask you to take this as it's being presented now, and that money is just being, that $370,000 basically being pulled aside. Now, if the council in May and in June decides, no, we aren't going to hit the general fund for those code enforcement dollars, then we'll need that $370,000 to be reappropriated back to code enforcement. So I think you're okay to hold that in abeyance for the time being, understanding that pending the budget process, you would come back to CDBG Advisory Committee and they would have the full ability to study the matter and give you their best advice.
So when the motion is made, we don't have to reprogram those funds today?
Those funds will just be held in limbo for the time being until and unless the council decides not to backfill CDB or backfill code enforcement.
So let me ask you, just to double check, I know that general fund is going to cover the code enforcement South Glendale. The quality and the type of code enforcement that will be implemented in South Glendale will not change, right? The same service that was there.
Absolutely, sir.
Okay.
That's my only reservation, is the fact that I hesitate in cutting funds to South Glendale. But in the long run and in the end, this would probably serve the whole entire community.
It simply was a means to an end, especially as we waded through the recession. I think that's what Mr. Lanzafame would tell you, is that as we moved through the onslaught of cuts, the $30 million in cuts to the general fund, while everyone wanted to move these funds out of CDBG, it really just wasn't practical at that time. Now, you are at a position where you can add ever so slightly back to the general fund. We believe, as it sounds like the council believes, freeing up these dollars for more social service types of functions is in the best interest of the community.
Right. And I do want to thank you for chairing the CDBG and for all the hard work that and the amount of time that you put into this these decisions that you make.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And if I could add, we'd be happy to take on the task of examining the proposal that staff is recommending. And if I may take just 1 minute, I wanted to highlight a couple of things from this year's cycle, just provide additional color to the deliberations. First of all, I wanted to actually thank Home and Men Glendale chapter for actually giving money back that made it possible. And the reason I wanted to thank them is I think it takes maturity to come back and say, you know, we want to take a step back and re-examine the program, make sure it's effective before we come and apply for funds. And so that $13,000 that they gave back into the fund allowed us to redistribute and actually increase the Salvation Army's after-school program so they can serve more people. We were also able to provide CASP's additional funding so that they can now go into a third school. If you remember a couple cycles back, they were in one school. Last cycle, we were able to give them enough to get into a second school. This now allows them to get into a third school, and they've been showing steady progress in being able to scale to that level, which I think is a tremendous service for our community. The other thing I think we're very happy about is that we were able to fully fund Catholic Charities in terms of the capital side of the situation. Their facility was in dire need of improvement, and they provide a very important service to the community, particularly including in the homeless area. So being able to fully fund their requested funds is going to allow us to bring that facility up to par. And so with this, I think we're also, I wanted to point out, very thankful to obviously Community Services and Parks for being able to provide a certain amount back in. So combination of all these efforts and us working together allowed us to, I think, do as much as we possibly could. We still fell short in some areas, you know, that couldn't satisfy 100% of everyone's needs, but I think we were able to give as much, you know, in an adequate way where we're making, we're not cutting them so small so that they are actually being effective.
And I have a question for you. The staff report mentioned that Family Promise was rejected. Are you saying that they pulled out?
No. So the situation with Family Promise, we believe that they, so first of all, they are Burbank-based. They're expanding into Glendale. They had just started and reorganized. Actually, they had some financial issues before. And so we felt it would be prudent to wait one cycle and encourage them to apply again so that we could have an additional track record to see, you know, what sort of success they would register before we started providing funding because of some of those issues that they've had in the past. They seem to be on the right track. They're also going to do some major fundraising themselves. They've hired someone full-time to lead the organization, and so we believe next time, and we encourage them to apply next time, and hopefully we can provide room, because we don't want to discourage new applicants from applying, but we did feel it would be more prudent to wait until they got a little bit more traction in the community before we started allocating money.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes,
questions?
Mayor Devine. Question for the city attorney, and the Promise of Hope, the Door of Hope name rang a bell in that I'm on the board, albeit an advisory board of that organization. I know several of us are on advisory boards of different hospitals and other different of the nonprofits. Does that preclude us from taking any action and allocating funds to the boards, to the organizations upon which we're board members?
We have, Mr. Mayor, members of council, we have a policy, I believe, that pertains to the CDBG commissioners. It doesn't apply to the council. There's no, as long as there's no financial interest that you have as it pertains to that, and it sounds like it's voluntary, there wouldn't be a preclusion. If you wanted to recuse yourself, you could, but you'd probably have to then recuse yourself from the entire matter unless the council chose to segment that issue out. So my answer is legally, I don't believe a recusal is required. However, you can choose to do so if you feel there's a potential conflict.
Well, perhaps well, let's leave it at that then.
Hey,
Mr. Duran, did you want to add to that?
yes, Mayor Devine, if I can expand on Mr. Garcia's comments. We do have a formal conflict of interest policy for the CDBG program that was reviewed by and approved by City Council several years ago. And that pertains primarily to, or only to, board of directors. So any nonprofit organization who has a committee member that is on the board of directors is not eligible to apply for CDBG funds, or the board member must leave the CDBG advisory committee in order for that organization to be eligible to receive CDBG funds. But that's specifically for board of directors as opposed to advisory boards or advisory committees.
Thank you. Thank you. Razian?
I have nothing to say. I just wanted to have just more increases for the next fiscal 2017-18 and more years to come. That's all.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to move the item with the changes to code enforcement, the city department's code enforcement funds to stay with the department, with the CDBG, and to bank it basically at this time until further notice.
Second.
Second. Roll call, Mr. Kazaki?
Council members Friedman,
Yes.
Garpetian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Sinanian,
Yes.
Mayor Devine.
Okay, thank you. Next item,
Yes.
please.
Next item is public hearing, Director of Community Development regarding Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act public hearing for the California Municipal Finance Authority proposed issuance of approximately $6 million in tax-exempt revenue bonds in support of Maple Park Apartments, Glendale Affordable Housing Residential Facility. 5.1 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Glendale approving the issuance of approximately $6 million in tax-exempt revenue bond obligation in support of Maple Park Apartments by the California Municipal Finance Authority.
And Mr. Ochoa, report.
Yes, ma'am. It's interesting. We talk about affordable housing. It really is an alphabet soup of different leveraged funding sources, different authorities that govern different elements of assorted projects. And so with Glendale's long history of affordable housing developments, and in this case, we're talking about the Maple Park Apartments here near downtown, we have what is emerging as an opportunity to hold what is referred to as a TEFRA hearing, and our Deputy Director of Community Development Housing, Peter Zovak, will get into the particulars. But we are the conduit for this hearing to take place, although the city is not party to the financing that ultimately could be executed pursuant to this hearing. That said, there is an opportunity, if that does come to its own culmination, where Glendale and Glendale Affordable Housing, the Housing Authority, could be beneficiaries of the realization of this refinance and reinvestment in the Maple Park Apartments. So with that, I'll have Peter talk with you about TEFRA.
Good afternoon, Mayor Devine, Chair Garpetti, and members of the Council and Housing Authority. Community Development staff recommends that the City Council conduct a Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act hearing, otherwise known as a TEFRA hearing. Conduct that hearing, public hearing, and approve the issuance of approximately $6 million in tax-exempt revenue bonds in support of Maple Park Apartments. As Mr. Ochoa said, it's a Glendale Affordable Housing Residential Facility located at 711 East Maple. Maple Parks Apartments, under the limited partnership of Maple Parks Preservation, has applied for issuance of up to $6 million in private activity revenue bonds that will be issued by the California Municipal Finance Authority. That's an authority that the city is already a member of with regards to previous bond issuances that have taken place. And the issuance is in support of the acquisition, rehabilitation, and preservation of Maple Park Apartments. Maple Park is a HUD 202 sponsored affordable rental housing project for very low-income seniors with developmental and/or physical disabilities here in Glendale. So again, it's a HUD 202. It's different from some of the HUD 202 projects that you've been involved in before. It has this special category of developmentally and/or physically disabled individuals. Monthly rents in the projects are subsidized by HUD through its project-based Section 8 program. Maple Park was originally developed in 1984 by a group called the Noble Corporation. Shortly after that, the project was assigned to Crippled Children's Society, who then reorganized as Ability First. Ability First owns and operates both Maple Park Apartments and the Ivy Glen Good House affordable housing project just right around the corner here from City Hall. And that's also an affordable housing project sponsored with HUD, and that project is for developmentally physical and physically disabled low-income adults. There is not a senior overlay on that particular project. So Maple Parks is a HUD 202, Ivy Glen Good House is a HUD 811 project. Both developed by Ability First. This request for a TEFRA hearing is being generated because Ability First has entered into a transfer agreement to transfer all of its project holdings in Southern California. There are about 10 of them that they own. and assign it to a new project sponsor. So this will impact both Maple Parks and Ivy Glen. The project is then proposed to be transferred over to a new project sponsor, who would be Figueroa Economical Housing Development Corporation. They are a non-profitable affordable housing development company located in Los Angeles. The transfer request has been reviewed and approved by HUD, who remains the ultimate governing authority on their projects so that they are involved in. In addition, community development staff has conducted its due diligence of the transfer as well with regards to concerns about capacity and operations for these two projects here in Glendale. As part of the transfer, the new project sponsor intends to utilize the state tax credit system and bond program to rehabilitate Maple Park, not Ivy Glen, specifically Maple Park, and that will then extend out its affordability covenants for a new 55-year term, which will take it out into the 2071, I believe, is the new term period for that. There is no fiscal impact to the city associated with the TEFRA hearing. These are private activity revenue bonds. They will be the obligation of the project. This is not an obligation of the city. You're simply conducting the public hearing for the issuance of these bonds on behalf of the state and on behalf of CMFA. There is a fiscal impact, though, on down the line if those bonds do get issued to the new project sponsor. Very similar to a discussion that we had recently with Park Paseo and the refinancing, exact same refinancing type of program, the TEFRA program. Of that project, there was an element of our development agreement that had to do with subsequent owners of the project. That has to do with the underlying contribution that the city had at the initial development of the project. There was a land write-down at that time. Any subsequent sale or transfer of that project requires a new reset of that land contribution and to be paid back to the city. If this project were to get its award of revenue bonds, then that will kick in, and we've already talked to the developer about that, and we have negotiated $800,000 settlement on that obligation that will then come back to the Housing Authority for its next affordable housing project. If you recall, in the Park Paseo project, there was a $900,000 settlement on that. In this particular case, it's $800,000. And I do want to make one correction to the report. It says that no tenants are expected to be displaced as a result of this project. And when we say that, I need to caution, it's permanently displaced. None of the tenants will be displaced from this project on a permanent basis. Everything will continue with them in terms of their occupancy, in terms of their rent structure, things like that. What will happen, though, because of the level of construction that's going to take place, we do anticipate some temporary relocation that will need to take place. What the developer plans to do is for some of the kitchen and bathroom build-outs is to try and have some of those improvements assembled off-site and ready to go, have a temporary move out of the tenants out of those units, and then within a week's time try and complete the rehab of their particular unit and move the tenants back in. With this type of population, staff was concerned about the ability for the developer and sponsors to communicate with the tenants in a timely manner to assist them because of their special needs in finding a temporary site to relocate to, assisting them with moving, things along those lines. And we really expressed to them the need to provide and plan clear communication and provide more of concierge services to this clientele during this renovation process, and they've agreed to do that. And they plan to fairly soon start on a communication plan with Ability First to the prospective tenants. Because again, the transfer wouldn't necessarily take place for a few more months out now.
So there is a plan on where they will go and when
They will develop that plan
they will develop it.
on where they would try and place them during some of the more intense construction activities that take place within their units.
Thank you. Are there any comments from council before I open the public hearing? Questions?
You should open it.
Should open it for? Okay. So we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to speak? I have no cards.
Close the hearing.
Then I will close the public hearing. I have no cards. Okay. Comments from council? Is there a motion to?
I'll move the resolution at 5-1.
Second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Council members Friedman,
Yes.
Garpetian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Sinanian,
Yes.
Mayor Devine.
Yes. And with that, I will adjourn
Move to adjourn for the council?
Second.
Second?
Move
Mr.
to,
Sinanian. We are adjourned.
We need
Is there
authority
a
also.
motion to adjourn for the Housing Authority?
So moved.
Thank you.
second.
Thank you.